Hello everyone, my name is Yasmeen. My group members are Lanes, Ellie, and Bryun. We are going to talk to you today about the legacy of Garberding Hall and Red Square protesting at the center of the university.
Our general claim, based off our research and tour of Gerberding, is that certain aspects of building design, as well as what people and thus what purpose occupies each building on an admin level, influences how people interact with the space, whether that is in terms of meeting and collaboration or protest and occupation. People on campus use the built spaces for the causes they want to support. While researching, we were reminded of how built spaces mean and how people interacting with the space is what gives the space its meaning. Gerberding Hall and Red Square by proximity exist as symbols of the university, as many high-level decisions are made and important events take place there. But it's also a key point of protest due to the proximity of those high-level decision-makers and the central location to campus. The architecture itself is not inherently violent or meant to totally dissuade protests, but the use of policing in certain spaces definitely can contribute to violence against students or protesters. This is the agenda for our presentation. First, we're going to talk about the architecture and the layout of Gerberding, what's on what floor. Then, we're going to talk about the history and the current protests at Gerberding and the surrounding area, why and how people protest there, and their interactions with the police. Third, we're going to draw a connection between the architecture and layout of Gerberding Hall and the surrounding area and the protests. How successful were they, and how they were resolved with the university. Last, we're going to talk about what that tells us about the university. How are the aspects of the buildings as symbols tell us what the university is and what it cares about.
One of the best examples of Gothic revival architecture is the University of Washington's Gerberding Hall, which was finished in 1949. The structure was designed by Victor N. Jones and John T. Jacobson. It has the styles and characteristics and pointed arches, steep gables, and elaborate stone details resembling medieval time buildings. With its symmetrical arrangement in tall, thin towers, this red brick sculpture with limestone accents enhances its formal beauty and verticality. It was renamed in 1995, originally holding the university library. The architecture strikes a mix between grandeur and utility. Even though it now serves as administration purposes, it is nevertheless a noteworthy architectural monument that reflects the code and academic excellence of the University of Washington.
First floor lobby stairway, usually not heavy foot traffic and not usually a large group of people either. Student life office, official environment very quiet during working hours. The view of Garberding Hall from Red Square is formal. Its tall, pointed windows and stone detail make it look classic and important. It stands out as one of the main buildings on campus, showing its importance. The building feels like the center of university life, surrounded by a busy square. It gives a sense of a tradition and authority, fitting for a place where big decisions are made.
The Board of Regents meeting room has a large seating area with chairs facing inwards to foster conversation. It is a site of protesting because board members make important decisions in the room. However, the room's use as a meeting space for the Board of Regents has been discontinued because it does not have a back entrance for staff to evacuate from in case of escalation. Outside the Board of Regents meeting room are images of important faculty members. It elevates their status and reminds the viewers that they are our leaders. The main spiral staircase gives Gerberding Hall a grand feel. The windows that line the staircase open the space up and make it brighter for passerbys. The third floor is where the provost and the president of the university reside. The personal offices are blocked off with doors, giving it a secretive feel. The lounge space on the third floor is near the vice provost and the president's office. It was the site of the pro-Palestinian sit-in in December of 2023 due to its proximity to the president's office. Its gray walls and stark lighting give the room a clinical feel. The Office of External Affairs on the second floor is a notable place in Gerberding Hall because it links the university to institutions outside of the university, such as tribal relations and government relations. Staff members of the Office of External Affairs have their own offices so they can meet in private.
Garberding Hall was built in 1949. It's the UW's main office building. It's the home for the president's office and other important leaders, making it a key spot for students to protest. In the spring 2024, United Audio Workers held a protest at UW to fight for better paying job securities and working conditions. UW allowed protests inside the building if they follow rules like not blocking doorways or disrupting operations. Students can share their opinions, but must make it clear that they speak for themselves and not the school. In 1968, the Black Student Union held a sit-in at the president's office to demand more black facilities and cultural courses. This led to a bigger change at UW. In 1969, a bomb exploded at Garberding Hall, causing a damage but no injuries. Most recently, in 2023, pro-Palestinian protests staged a sit-in at the president's office, asking UW to cut ties with Israel. Police removed 36 for trespassing. In the 1960s, UW students joined the Great Boycott, supporting farm workers' rights by protesting harsh working conditions.
The University of Washington's Garberding Hall has had multiple run-ins with the police. Usually during student demonstrations or major campus gatherings, law enforcement reacting to protests on political, social, or academic issues are very notable examples. Usually the main goal of these encounters are crowd control and maintaining safety and the peace of the people. And they just there to dissolve disturbances. And there may occasionally be tensions between students and police, particularly when there is a lot of activism going on campus for certain things going around the country or specifically at the University of Washington.
Garberding Hall sits on an area in the central part of the University of Washington's Seattle campus, housing the president and provost's office. Garberding Hall in the Red Square area is a key area of protesting on campus for groups that want to have their voices heard. As we've heard earlier, Garberding is a site of both past and present protest. In the last year, tensions around campus have come to a high point in areas such as Israel and the invasion of Gaza, and in a contract negotiation year with the university, a place for the ASEs to protest better pay and treatment for student employees. The university has resolved to protect freedom of speech on campus and treat those protesting with respect. Rarely is violence used by the police against protesters at UW when compared with other universities around the country. When heavy violence is not used against students or employees, people are able to make their complaints or wants heard, as the university can work with groups to come to agreements. Last spring, the Palestine Solidarity Encampment and the ASE UAW union were able to protest for things they cared about before coming to an agreement with the university and agreeing to dissolve the encampment after certain conditions were met and end the TA strike after a new contract was agreed upon. The architecture of Garberding Hall and the surrounding Red Square area allows peaceful protests to take place that respects the rights of protesters and allows the university to continue to function as a space where learning can continue, despite differing views on things. Certain areas of Garberding are designed to keep people such as the university president and other high-level UW admins safe, but also allow people to protest in an area where they feel that their voice will be heard by the people who make the decisions in the issue areas they care about.
I argue that Garberding Hall is the brain of the university. It acts like the White House. It is where most of the executive decisions are made and where the president of the university resides. For this reason, as we have discussed, it is also the place where protests can make the most impact. Student and staff protest the head of the university so that they can make the most change possible. J. Douglas Toma writes, "Institutions often use images of campus, particularly campus buildings, to represent the character of the institution." Garberding Hall was built in 1949, the last of other Gothic-style buildings in the Quad. By visually tying it together with the Gothic buildings in the Quad, it gives viewers a sense of history. When people walk by Garberding and see its tall bell tower, they are reminded of an old castle. People associate the university with traditional values. However, protesters break this facade of history and rigidity by raising their voices, vandalizing, petitioning, and occupying Garberding. UW's Red Square represents the different virtues of the university. Suzzallo Library represents knowledge and reading, Meany Hall represents the performing arts, Kane Hall represents student learning, and Garberding, the administration. Garberding is such an effective location for protesting because the university cannot run without its administration, its brain. If the brain has cancer, i.e. corruption, students and staff must perform surgery via protest.